Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. James
Debbie-
is going to hang himself to the left, and Chad's going to look to the right. James knows why. So does Chad.
And Debbie Reynolds won't return our phone calls for Halloween Town 6.
Well,
too soon.
I don't know. Everybody's calling Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher scabs, and all I want to say is,
I love though. Here's the best part about that. The only good to come out of that, because I do agree, like they're breaking, and like Bill Maher did that statement, which I was like, dude, just keep your mouth shut. You would have been better off. Where he did that statement going, I feel for the writers, but I got to think about the cameraman and everything. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying in theory, but what you're basically just telling is every writer that said, hey, we stand in solidarity. And he's like, and I'm a writer too. I'm like, yeah, but you'll still get paid.
I'm sorry. I don't know much about the story. I haven't had a chance to look it up, but didn't he also say that, writers should just suck it up? They're not going to get paid or something along those lines?
Well, it wasn't that. He was talking about a lot of them make a lot of money, and he's not wrong. And then, but the other part of it is that
but the majority don't.
The majority don't. And what a thing he did say that I kind of disagree with is some of the things that they're asking for are outlandish. And I don't know that I agree with outlandishness. I think that the two parties are clearly at a stalemate, and neither one. I don't think Hollywood gives two fucks.
Right.
No. But I do think them doing that.
These corporations they're just parts of big corporations.
Right, I was saying that's it. That's part of it too, right? It used to be like that Warner Brothers documentary. You would go in, there'd be three brothers, and you'd negotiate with them. Yes. Now you're negotiating with oil companies and blah blah blah. And they're all conglomerates.
Comcast is a global entity, that owns Universal. Yeah. It's not.
I mean, but the good that came out of this though, and if you're following us on Twitter, you've solved this probably by the time this airs. It's all the clips that are coming out where people have just embarrassed Bill Maher, and my favorite one is Roddy Piper, because he had wrestlers on the show. And he immediately goes, yeah, but it's all fake. And then they're like, no, we do get hurt. And he goes, show me the bruises. And Roddy Piper stood up and dropped his pants to show a bruise down his leg, and then screamed something like, call Mrs. Hart and ask her about her injuries.
Yeah. And
I'm like, yeah, all true. I mean, and so I think that's it. I think it's one of those things that, and I know that's part of his shtick, right, is the ego. I mean, he could be a phenomenally nice person, but part of his shtick is that I assume part of it's a character. Like, I can't imagine. So anyway, but that's those clips that are surfacing now of young Bill Maher getting schooled by Roddy Piper are the good that's going to come out of this, I think. I don't know if there'll be much other good.
And fuck Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, but
I'm joking. I don't have a dog in the fight other than you kind of have to just suck it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and my entire thing about that too is, again, these people that are becoming the poster child for it are people that could not do their shows. Like Bill Maher's, he's losing money, but he's not out with the tin cup in the street.
Yeah,
some of the writers are.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that a lot of big name writers are literally supporting these other writers during that time, and I give them much credit for that. I mean, these. I hate to say famous, because I think there's a lot of
famous writer.
No, there's not. I think there's famous things that are written, but to the average person,
Stephen King.
But Stephen King doesn't write for film. I mean, he does. Don't get me. But you know what I'm saying?
No, I literally, there's only 3 or 4 that people will know, like Poe.
Yeah.
Stephen King, maybe Dickens.
Romance novel authors.
Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie.
And that's it. I mean, I think that's
V.C. Andrews.
Yeah. But
I'm just joking.
I think that's it. Once upon a time, I would argue Thomas Harris, but I think even that's starting to fade.
No, I don't think.
And there's that other writer. What's his name? William Shakenbake.
Yeah.
Or no, my undergrad called him Willie the Shake.
But I think that's it. I think that's part of the problem, because there's these things that we love.
By the way, for our listeners, you already know the topic because you're looking at us on YouTube, you're looking at us on SoundCloud or your iPhone. We have not talked about
No, but
no, this is not.
Well, this
our
is
topic is completely left field. Of
this is a brawl on its own right. This is a brawl.
Looking to
But
the right, James hanging by his neck in the left.
anyway, the
Yeah, with the look of course he did.
the other side of that, though, I think that's part of the problem, though, is
all I can say, no joke, while James is talking, I forgot to look up how to pronounce an actor, so I'm sitting here hitting play, listening to him.
there's a lot of it's Zerby.
Derby.
Uh,
That only cost us one guest.
I know. There's a lot, though, of things that people love that they have no idea who wrote it. Like, I keep hearing people, and I haven't. I'm waiting because my wife likes Rosario Dawson to watch Ahsoka, and I'm like, I'm betting a lot of people can't tell me who wrote those episodes.
No, I can because I read them, but I actually have a comment about that show that I'll keep to myself. But Ray Stevenson is the best part of it.
I really thought you were going to say Ray Stevens, and I was like, I didn't know he was even in it. Does he do it?
They call her the Ahsoka.
Even though I still Ray Stevens.
That porg got loose in that church and caused a big hullabaloo.
Probably need to talk about the topic, but I will say this: honest, and it's the truth. Ray Stevenson steals any scene that he's in
that show. Him in a certain robot.
No, I'm talking about anything. Period. Rest in peace.
Why do
he's
you
a great character actor? I won't argue with it. I was just trying to think if he steals every scene, but he steals. Have you watched Ahsoka, Chad?
Yeah, no, I'm watching it. I'm not happy with it, but I love him.
Well, there's 2 or 3 things I think to get right, and Ahsoka is actually not one of them.
Right.
As much as I love Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
But Ray Stevenson, that may very well be one of the most interesting bad guys that they've created since Darth Vader.
Yep. Agree.
That guy, because there's actually layers, James. There's layers to that character, and the more you find out about it. So I'm curious to see how it goes. And there's a certain robot that when he's back on the screen, that's from another. I enjoy seeing him live action.
Well, by the way,
I don't care about the other ones.
Yeah, I that was spoiled for me because there's big action figures of that certain character at a certain theme park now, and it's not labeled from the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, they got the personality and everything right, so it's cool. Yeah.
But I think that's and this leads directly into our topic, though.
It does.
It does, because one of the things that came up.
I'm curious with you all to find out how.
One of the things that came up on a lot of lists, and I didn't think of this as a bar fight because it's not a fight; it's too short.
And there's the topic:
Whoa,
fights, bar/club fights. Which Joe said that he didn't realize there was a difference, but I will before, but not to cut you off.
Back and go, good. I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't either. But the way I view it is, bars are sitting around, people drinking beer or whiskey and not really doing much of else, in clubs is like electronic dance music and ecstasy. Anyway, with a bar in the background. James, go ahead.
It's just places that serve alcohol. I just call them kind of all bars or clubs. So yeah,
all places that I don't care for.
Because this was on a couple lists, was the Star Wars Ponda Baba.
Yeah,
getting his, and I don't consider that a bar fight because there's no fight.
No.
I'm a one-head man in 3 seconds. Oh, with my arms gone. Son of a.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's quick.
That's not a bar. To me, a bar fight is this orchestrated. Oh my God! It's people jumping in or out that's too quick.
Is a scene of a Hal Needham picture.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any Hal Needham, so I did see some. I don't want to say, well, I
have one Hal Needham, but we're going to see if it doesn't get mentioned, I'll mention him in episode 2, which we think we're going to have 2 episodes.
We're pretty sure we're going to, because I normally
there are so many good bar fights and club fight scenes in movies.
Was this your idea, Chad?
Yeah, it was my idea.
So when Chad did this, I didn't think of it, and then today something happened. I didn't get to do as much research as I wanted, and by that, very little to none. But it was okay, and I wasn't nervous because I had 3 or 4. I normally have to prime my pump, and I didn't have to prime the pump in this in any way, shape, or form. Hey, James, you want to help me prime my pump?
No, I'm good.
I need you to do it before you hang yourself, Cole.
Oh, I thought that was priming the pump.
While you prime Joe's pump, allow me to do this.
That is not what you did.
I don't know
I
what you're
wish I was
talking about.
pushing to
I really
record.
do not know
I
what you're
wish I was
talking
pushing
about.
to record. I wish, but it's okay. Even if he saw it, he's like, I don't know, I didn't do that. That's CGI right
No,
there.
if you would have
That
shown me,
little
I would
AI.
have no explanation as to why my eyes rolled. I have
the
no
size
idea.
Stack of shit.
It's the sound of my
That
voice.
fat son of a bitch was back in his house. He's pretending he couldn't use technology, learning how to use all them computer generated whatnots.
Robots, you
Well,
say? Well, so who wants to go first? Who wants to
I-
kick it? Because I kind of ruined. If you wanted to do the Star War, I ruined it because I
Well,
don't
no,
consider
I
that bar
didn't.
fight. But
why
I'm
don't
more
I go?
happy.
Because I got a
Chad,
goofy,
you did it. Why don't you go?
and I'm going to talk about the one that inspired me to think about this topic because
Well,
I
do
started.
that. Why don't you go, Chad?
Yeah. Oh my
Are you
God.
going?
You
Are you
fuckers have
going?
been talking nonstop for over 40 minutes.
That's not true. Only 30% of that will I take credit for.
Yeah.
Touche.
And can we get on with it, Chad? Jeez. People try to come to this show for the topic.
Oh my good
30%.
God.
There were no bugs under my mattress, sir,
So no
that I knew of.
there was one the reason I'm putting this at the top, it's not the best. It is nowhere should be on this list
Then why the
but-
fuck are we talking about?
because it made me think of this topic because one day I sat there and giggled nonstop thinking about this and I'm like, holy shit, we could do a whole episode on this. And I'm going to say 2 words, guys, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Tiny whiners.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And for our listeners who may not know what tiny whiners is, this is
It's a description
no
of at least
holds-
2/3 of the boneheads.
Yeah, true. It is no holes barred. The bar fight scene in No Holes Barred. Now there's 2. There's the initial finding of David Paymer and the other guy whose name I can't remember.
Kurt Fuller?
Finding the big chubby,
Is it Kurt Fuller?
No, Kurt
Fuller's the
Fuller is
main
their
bad guy.
boss.
Okay.
Kurt Fuller is their boss.
Well, then I don't remember who the
Yeah,
other
it's David
person is.
Paymer and another Hitchman guy. And I didn't look him up, and I apologize. But they find this big redneck, and he beats a bunch of people up in a bar. It isn't a hilarious scene. That's actually not very. It's nowhere near. It should be on this list of great fights. But then enters Zeus, and Zeus just beats the ever-loving shit out of him by simply doing this, taking his 2 muscular arms and bashing them into his head. That is the whole scene. It is by far one of the lamest bar fight scenes in the history of movies. Not only that, the movie itself is laughable. I don't know why I love this movie so much as a kid,
I
guys.
don't either.
I don't.
Well,
I
as a
loved it.
kid, I kind of get it. But
I mean, I was a big Hulk Hogan fan, which now even I'm not a huge wrestling fan, but going back, I'm like, man, he sucked compared
I
to.
love listening to interviews with him.
I haven't heard an interview with him in a long time, but now that for those who don't know, I kind of got into wrestling just recently, not so much watching it, but just kind of reliving it. But then I got the history of it as well, which I never actually did. Hulk Hogan's a bastard.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
did so much to ruin wrestling people's careers just because he was at the top and never wanted to be down off of it. But anyway, the bar fight scene in No Holes Barred, it's worth watching just for tiny whiners and watching the hilarity of this ridiculous bar fight scene. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to talk about what I think is the dumbest bar fight scene in the history of cinema. This doesn't come anywhere near it.
All right.
Who's
Am I up
next?
next?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Dude, Robert Rodriguez, Desperado.
Yep, he was on my list.
That's good.
Desperado, Robert Rodriguez, that bar fight scene.
It
Because
is epic.
it is so epic. I hadn't seen El Mariachi, and I can't remember who I was dating. It came out in 95.
It was me.
I didn't know you then, but you were probably, I do remember her, and she has slightly more hair, and that's about the only difference.
I had hair then. I had fishnet stockings. You would have known the difference.
And she never wore fishnet stockings, so haha, you fell into that trap. Although I do love a goth, you got me there. You got me there. I break for goth chicks. Now, went to the movie theater Friday night, Fugates, high school, date. Didn't know, just saw it, thought I was going to watch it. Had no idea what I was in for watching Desperado. Right? Because I didn't know Robert Rodriguez. I hadn't seen El Mariachi. I didn't know jack shit about Antonio Banderas and Selma Hayek. Steve Buscemi, I may have seen in a couple of things. I probably saw Reservoir Dogs, but I didn't know. This movie was freaking tremendous. It was amazing. It would blew my socks off. The only complaint I have about it that I now appreciate is the ending. Because the ending just kind of fades and he wins, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's how it ends. I now appreciate the ending, but at the time it kind of is like, oh my God, why did he do that? Why was there something epic? But that bar fight and Cheech in the bar, the bartender never gets killed. I just can't say enough. I could in fact, I want to go rewatch it right now.
Same with me. When I thought about it on my list is it did when it came out, I had never seen anything remotely like it.
The only thing that came close was I was like, you would watch it and go, man, he's clearly influenced a lot by Raimi.
Yeah.
But he takes it to another level in his own way. I never thought of him as a ripoff of Raimi. I never once thought of him as a ripoff of Raimi.
And one of the best, it's still, I can play it out in my head step by step. When him and the one guy are trying to fire at each other and they keep finding empty guns and they just keep going back and forth. It is amazing.
It's so good.
But yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, when you talk about bar fights, it is up there with one of the best bar fights of all time.
I know. So, and as I was thinking about it, I
sorry for those people who got a loud thud. My keyboard crashed on me.
I don't know how many people have seen Desperado.
Oh, you don't hear it talked about as much as you used to.
And I'm getting to that age where now the 20-year-olds don't even know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, that's true.
But Desperado is a lot of fun. Even if you're young, go out. First of all, our audience skews a little bit more middle-aged. No offense to our listeners. However, if you're listening to this, go check out Desperado. If you do nothing else, watch the first 45 minutes of it. It is nothing but fun, with Steve Buscemi giving one of the best performances of his life.
Yeah.
And Antonio Banderas is cool as hell.
Yeah, yeah. And then after you're done watching, actually watch El Mariachi, then watch that, and then watch Once Upon a Time in Mexico, just for that entire scene of, this is so good. I got to go in the kitchen and kill that cook.
Are you a Mexican or a Mexican?
Mexican.
I literally go out and watch Desperado.
What a great
That is the favorite of those three. I appreciated El Mariachi later once I found out about it and realized it was a sequel. And then I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he did this for $5,000. There's a fascinating story about Robert Rodriguez. He's very much a self-made man. But go out and watch Desperado.
Yeah, it's the best of the three.
It is the best of the three, even though there's great lines in Once Upon a Time in Mexico. It's just not as cool. It doesn't roll as well. And the only thing that bothers me, other than the ending, which doesn't bother me anymore, is the fact that I know that, and as much as the actor does a fine job, Raul Julia would have killed that role if he hadn't died of cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. His dying really messed with his plans.
It did. Well, he was going to do it. He just cancer got him.
Yeah.
James.
All right. I want to talk about one, but I've got to do an intro of why it came to my mind. Because growing up, the earliest bar fight I remember seeing was on a TV show.
Is in his house.
It was Christmas. No. My parents were happy drunks, Joe.
Chad Joe.
Anyway,
all I can say is I have done nothing wrong.
Right. No, sitting at the foot of the cross he was, officer. Anyway,
handing out Gideon Bibles.
But so my first bar fight memory, and I was saying about this, I'm like, oh, it really does set up,
is when he smashed that beer bottle over that hobo.
Well, no, it's when he smashed that beer bottle over his mom and sweet dad.
Yeah, his brains were oozing out his ear, and his mom came into the bar and said, "That's your real dad."
This makes more sense to me, because for years James is like, I don't really want to drink. If I think I drink, I think I get angry, and now we know the truth.
Yeah,
he's trying to save our lives. James is a good friend.
Yeah, call me angry one more time, I'll carve your head into an ashtray. Anyway, the point being, so the first one, it was a television show I watched from the time I was little. originally with my father, and that would be Star Trek. And the Trouble with Tribbles has the great bar fight
Oh.
scene where Cyrano Jones is trying to drink and avoid everybody, and it's that great fight between the Klingons.
It's a
And-
great Western bar fight scene
Yes.
set out in space.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
But it has
It's
one of the
exactly
great.
what
It
is.
has one of the great wrap ups
It
after
does-
the
yeah.
fight's over.
It absolutely does, James.
Yeah.
Nailed it, and I don't even know why I didn't think of it.
Yeah, no,
I
didn't
love
either,
that
James.
scene.
Kudos.
There's one movie though, and that's why I wanted. I set that up because I was originally just going to talk about that, but I'm like, oh, there's one movie that captures.
I think that bar fight is what led to Scotty's brain damage, which caused him to run into that rafter.
I love the punishment that he gets. Do y'all remember what his punishment is for starting the fight?
I can't remember.
He gets sent to his quarters. And
So he can read his manual.
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh, good, I can catch up on my technical journals."
Yep.
And I'm like, I identify with Scotty more and more every day. But there's another movie that captures that scene, and I don't think it's a direct correlation, though the geeks behind it may be. Because when we were talking about this, I'm like, oh, what a great scene that is that nobody talks about anymore. And it all starts off with the line. Well, actually, I think it's after he caves in the other guy's head.
Why don't you save this for your second one? Because I think the Scotty one is
a perfect.
Well, okay, so I will talk about that. So basically, if you've not seen that episode,
I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
that is your first iconic Trekkie.
So far, your first pick
Yeah.
is the best one of. Well, I don't know. Desperado.
It starts. Yeah, the scene starts though with
for
and the
pure humor.
reason.
Oh no, they're both funny.
I will freely admit mine was shit.
The reason the scene works is because it's one of those scenes that really establishes that Scotty could care less about the crew sometimes, but he loves that stupid shit, right? I mean, he loves the Enterprise because it starts with Chekhov wants to fight. He's wanting to fight him. They're sitting around drinking, and the Klingon comes over, and he starts making fun of Kirk, and immediately, Chekhov wants to fight. And Scotty's like, "Sit down, laddie. Don't do it."
Yeah.
And then when the Klingon makes the comment of the Enterprise is nothing but a garbage scow, and then Scotty says, "Would you mind repeating that, laddie?"
Yep.
He goes, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it's a garbage scow. I mean, it should be hauled away as garbage." And then it plays that little musical interlude as Scotty slowly gets up, pulls his hand back, decks him, and then of course it just breaks out into a fight. And Cyrano Jones, the traitor that quite frankly should have been a return of Harry Mudd, and that's not an insult to the actor or anything, but it should have been Harry Mudd. It's drinking. And he's trying to get through with his drink through the crowd and all of that stuff as punches are thrown. And the fact that they repeat that scene when they did the Deep Space Nine and it works just as well, it still holds up. It's still a ton of fun. And you get that entire scene afterwards where Kirk is having to do the diplomatic thing, be like, who started it? Why did they start it? What were you doing? All that stuff. And they just go up and down the line, and it works so well.
Yep.
And it is one of the most iconic. I mean, from a young age going, oh my God, that's it. That's the bar fight I remember from being a kid and watching. Because there's just no scene. And the fact that really at the end of it, there's no harm done.
No.
I mean, Scotty has to go and read technical journals, which is what he'd rather be doing. He doesn't like
nobody really got in any trouble at all.
Yeah. Where there'll be no trouble
at all.
Anyway, so again, yeah, no, it's one of my favorite bar fight scenes from television, and I can watch that episode again. David Gerrold, who is very much still alive, and wrote actually a sequel episode that was never made for the Next Generation that you can buy from his website, and then he made a third one which has never been released as well. David Gerrold, very much still active, and is a great writer. If you've never read anything else by him, he wrote that, I think, episode. He was like 18 when he wrote that episode. Phenomenal writer, but wrote one of the best bar fight scenes of all time. I'd love to get David Gerrold on the episode. So if anybody hears this and happens to know him, we'd love to talk to David Gerrold for an episode.
Absolutely. Chad.
Okay. So I admittedly threw away my first choice simply
I don't know
because
you threw it away. You picked something that you loved, and we can't really argue with you about that. Let me do my impersonation. Can we, Jay?
I don't know. I can't get this rope around my neck.
I look to the left. That's where James is hanging. I need to look to the right.
Yeah, you don't want to make eye contact.
Oh God, no. Haunted. No.
If I get the right angle, me in the teeth of the Evil Dead 2 skull.
But I do want to talk about what I think may be one of the best club fights of all time that people don't talk about, even though it's slowly gaining cult classic. I think it's already there, but it's slowly gaining classic status. That is the club scene where Yayan Ruyan fights the entire gang inside the club. And it is an amazing fight. Do you know from Raid 2, The Redemption, from Raid 2?
Oh, Raid 2. I've seen Raid 2. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, did I not say the title?
No,
No.
you didn't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I pulled a James.
What type of person would do that and keep people in suspense?
I don't remember I saw Raid and Raid Redemption. I love them both, but I it's one of those where they're a lot of fun to watch, but it's been 3 or 4 years and I can't tell you details.
So the scene I'm talking about, Yayan Ruyan, he's the guy, the really poor looking man. He looks like he's a hobo, but
Yeah.
he's like insanely skilled, and he works for the bad guys, and the bad guys call him into the bar to tell him that, it's okay, here, but it's really a trap. And the bad guy sends the entire army after him, and he almost kills every single one of them before finally biting it into an alley outside the club. And it's a gruesome, bloody fight where he's just stabbing people, breaking people apart. It's an amazing, it's just nonstop. And if I'm not mistaken, it like with all the Raid 2, Gareth Evans is an amazing director.
Yeah, he is.
I'm really looking forward to his next movie, Havoc, with Tom Hardy. I thought it was going to come out this year, but I think with the strike and everything, it's not going to come out till 2024.
Oh, I didn't know his next movie was Tom Hardy. That's cool.
Yeah. It's the same premise. Tom Hardy's, I think he's a drug dealer or something, and he gets caught and he has to fight his way back out of it. And it's him going through a bloody battle just to get out from whatever's happening. But no, the Raid 2, the club scene with Yayan Ruyan.
Jim and Bobo.
I want to do the man justice because he's one of those. He's one of these amazing fight choreographers who, because I think he's from Indonesia, he doesn't get a lot of play. And that was the whole thing, was they were making a big deal about him and Iko Uwais from the Raid, the main character from the Raid and Raid 2, being in Star Wars The Force Awakens, and they're in it for a grand total of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
These are two amazing people, and if you don't know their list of work, please look them up. Every movie they do is amazing. So yeah, the club scene in the Raid 2, amazing.
Picture it, gentlemen. You picturing it?
No.
Which one, the Tim Curry one or the other It?
Oh, that's funny. It's 1996. It's been a year.
I'm so sorry. Are we in Sicily?
We're in Sicily. That's right. Picture it. I'm holding a purse and we're on the lanai. It's 1996. It's February. It's been a year since my mind was melted from this new director called Robert Rodriguez. And then he's teamed up with this guy that I think is amazing because he wrote and directed this movie called Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and it's got vampires in it. What could go wrong? Nothing. That movie was awesome in 1996
The
when I
entire
was in the theater.
second half of that
The entire
film.
second half is a bar fight.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
on my list. I'm glad you did it.
Sorry, gentlemen. I'm not trying to
No.
take. It's just
No.
It's the next thing that comes into my head was Robert
I
Rodriguez doesn't have one but two of the greatest bar fights in cinema history.
In all fairness, I didn't put it on my list because I knew Joe was going to bring it up. I didn't know he was going to bring up Desperado, so that's why I put it on my list. So yeah.
From
I
Dusk
know.
Till Dawn. Now, granted, as much as I love it, I think the bar fight in Desperado is more fun.
Yes.
It's a little bit better. But From Dusk Till Dawn is a fantastic bar fight that just keeps going and going. It truly is one of those movies that is two different movies in one.
Mhm.
And if you love one, you like the other one. If you like one, you love the other one. I actually like both, but I bet if you put a gun to my head, I like the first half just slightly better before they run into the vampires.
Really?
Yeah, I can't tell you why. I just slightly better. I don't know why. It just, the vampire thing it works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fantastic movie. Just slightly better. I wonder what that movie would have been like if they hadn't ran into the vampires.
California.
Had the Seth, huh?
It would have been California.
I guess they would have made it to Mexico, and everybody would have.
No,
been...
the movie California.
Oh, was that it? I don't think I've
with
ever
a
actually
K,
seen
right?
California.
Yeah, with a K.
With Brad Pitt.
I don't
I don't
remember
think I've
anything
ever
about
seen
it.
I've never seen it.
California.
So, also some of the best K&B effects work of all time, with all the different vampires. And there's a ton of shit that got cut from that movie that we still never seen. If you watch Full Tilt Boogie, you can watch some of it, and you can see some of it online. But there's never been like a restored. I think there's another 20 or 30 minutes to all that fighting that you just never seen. Wouldn't you guys like to see that?
Yes.
Yeah. And I get why you can't have that much. Eventually, it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour vampire movie. You can't do that. But
right.
Oh, you can.
Well, yeah, you could.
It's
You
just
lose the audience.
Well, you get a very specific audience at that point.
Yeah, it's us.
Yeah. You get the extended cut of the Hobbit audience. I want to see it all.
Yeah, I do. So 1996, February, sitting in the movie theater with my mom as Cheech is screaming all the different types of vagina behind those doors.
Wasn't that entire Selma Hayek, Quentin Tarantino casting himself in that role.
And then writing the scene where she shoves his foot down his mouth.
Yeah.
And always arguing that he does not have a foot fetish, even though one movie after another proves he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like I have a thing for people in chairs.
He likes sitting down.
That's an obscure joke for
that was my memory the other day, by the way, was when we did Third Degree premiere at
I know.
I was just gonna say Joe has a picture of Stephen Hawking in his bathroom that he masturbates to.
No, Stephen Hawking masturbated to me, motherfucker. Just had to have somebody help him do it. So technically it wasn't masturbation, but that's just how it goes. All right. Who's next?
I guess that's me. I'm going to talk about the one that I was leading to the last time because it's another great science fiction fight scene. This one doesn't get talked about much, but I love it because it captures some of the same zeitgeist, I guess, of the Star Trek fight. Because it starts off with literally somebody losing their temper, caving in somebody else's head, and screaming, "I hate this effing town." And that speaker is the great, great action hero we all know as Sir Nick Frost. The bar fight scene at the World's End.
That's a good one.
I thought you were going to pick.
And I didn't think about it.
Where Pierce Brosnan's head gets collapsed in. And I love that scene so much. And the reason I say it always reminds me of the Star Trek scene, you have Simon Pegg try not to spill his alcohol as everything's going on around him. You have everybody else fighting, everybody else caving ahead. Martin Freeman. So the cast on that's so great. But it's this great bar fight scene where literally they're not going to win. They're not going to win. I mean, they sort of win briefly. But it's a great science fiction bar fight scene that people forget happened. I would put it up there with, the fight scenes of Arnold in The Terminator and all that stuff where he fights in bars. Because it's just, and I love the fact that it's Nick Frost. Nick Frost is really the hero of that fight. He is the one that will not stop fighting, just collapsing people's heads in.
Well, he's also the most interesting character in the movie, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love the fact, but
Agreed.
I think
it's a really interesting thing that it's Nick Frost who, I mean, and I say this, Nick Frost is built like me. I mean, he's not in great shape. He's not he's not Arnold. He's not the hero type that we usually see. He's not Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. He's not, but he's the one that's really holding his own and taking everybody down and killing Pierce Brosnan's well, one of Pierce Brosnan's characters, and all of the things that happens there. And I think it's a great bar fight scene. And I love the fact that it's literally he takes so much, and then him collapsing in Pierce Brosnan's head and screaming, "I hate this effing town," as everything just explodes around him and everybody starts fighting. And Simon Pegg not wanting to stop drinking to help until something happens. And even then, he's like, and he's getting mad because people are bumping him and spilling his drink. And it's one of the greatest bar fight scenes that nobody talks about anymore. If you don't remember it, go back and watch the. If you've never seen The World's End, go watch The World's End.
Yeah.
It's
Go
also
see the Cornetto
yeah,
trilogy.
It is probably also the most serious of the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah.
That's still, I mean, it's obviously still got a lot of humor to it, but it's actually, to me, it's a mediation on what happens when your world changes, what's middle age actually feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it works. It's, to me,
all three of those movies have the similar themes.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead's the same.
To me, it's also, though, a little bit, it reminds me a little bit in that I can identify with almost every character, sort of like Clerks 2. Like, I understand there's that moment of, oh, this is just what we are now, and that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it works for me, but it is one of the greatest bar fight scenes where it's science fiction. A lot of mine are science fiction based. That shouldn't shock anyone. But it's just this great, because of course if you're not familiar, they're not human is what they're fighting. So there's scenes where people lose their head and all that stuff, and they still try to fight on. And it's just a great over-the-top bar fight scene. And like I said, Nick Frost going off on people and ripping off limbs and everything it just makes for a great scene. So there you go. At the World's End.
Yep. Chad?
So I was going to do one, but then Joe mentioned Army of Darkness
has a fantastic bar fight scene.
Oh my God, help me. What pick? Almost
Dusk Till Dawn.
Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
Oh God. Which is half a movie, and that's all that is a single bar fight. But I'm going to not do my last pick. I'm going to save that for episode 2. And I want to talk about a movie that is nothing but a bar fight from beginning to end. Feast.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
It was on my mind, actually. I almost brought it up, Chad. I'm glad you did, because I was like, oh, that is, you're right, from beginning to end.
Yeah, from beginning to end, the movie is nothing but a bloody, gory bar fight. And it's, was this the Project Greenlight film?
Yep.
Yeah. So Project Greenlight was a show made by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
You're bringing in those dollars, gentlemen.
I wish we would totally be sponsored by Affleck.
Yeah. But the winner, John Gallagher, he got to make the movie that he wanted to make, and it was this movie Feast. And if you're not familiar with it, it's about these people in a bar in the middle of nowhere in the desert are suddenly overran by these weird, mysterious creatures who are trying to get in and kill them while they're trying to just survive the night. And what transpires is about an hour and a half of the bloodiest, most hilarious fight scenes, kill scenes in movie history. It's one of those ones that I don't think, guys, does it even have cult classic status?
No, it should. The sequels are unfortunately not as good.
Well, now, am I remembering correctly that it also has a pop-up card, like hero, odds of survival 1 in 10, and then he dies almost immediately. And
it's
heroin. Let's hope she does better.
It's a lot of fun. It's just a fun movie.
And anytime I get to mention Krista Allen,
and she's good in it.
She's really good in it.
She is. Not that they shouldn't be, but she's good in it.
It's just sadly her career, really, because of her previous career, she didn't actually get to become a movie star like she should have been.
What do you mean, like Emmanuel?
Yeah.
You think that's what stopped?
I think she was she was softcore porn and then tried to go mainstream and it just didn't click. But and that could not be what happened. I don't know. It's just a
I don't
guess.
know either.
But yeah, no, if you haven't seen Feast, please check it out. I mean, again, it's an hour and a half of just nonstop violence inside of a bar. Cannot talk about it enough. Joe.
They didn't want to have violence in a bar, or they didn't want to have violence in the street. They wanted to have violence in a bar, but they moved them out to the street. Sorry. That was a Ron White.
Oh, I forgot. Cole, isn't that Gallagher? Isn't Cole?
Lou Gallagher is his dad.
Yeah, it's his dad.
Yeah. I actually had the privilege of talking to Clue before he passed away. He's not one of the nicest guys. Although I hear he could be a contrarian to work with. Talk to and interview. Well, I didn't get a chance to interview him. I just got a chance to meet him. And I have to say thank you to, oh my God, who's the star of Return of the Living Dead? George Clooney's buddy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he went out of his way to make it happen for me, actually. So I have to say thank you to him. He has no recollection of it because I asked him about it again when he was at Scarefest last year. But anyway, I thanked him for it. Picture it. Once again,
Sicily.
I'm from Lanai, Sicily. And it's 1997. And I am such a cinephile.
Man, you just picked movies that are what, 95, 96, and 97?
Yes, Chad. You see where I'm going with this?
Nope.
Yeah, no, you're old.
I know, I'm old. And I love movies, and I'm at that time able to see them. And Hazard's got a second theater, which is amazing to me. I can't imagine what the piece of shit looks like. I've seen it. I actually want to go inside of it again because it's reopened. Hillside Theater. And Hillside has the balls to show things that Fugits won't. And you know what we get in Hazard, Kentucky?
So help me,
right.
If it's Ballistics X versus Sever, I'll burn your house.
It's Ballistic X versus Sever. No, it's Train Spotting. It's Danny Boyle's Train Spotting. And the scene where Begbie in the bar, played by Robert Carlyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is one of, actually, for me, not so much in the sequel, but in the original movie, is one of the most disturbing psychopaths in cinema history. And I can't tell you why, other than he strikes a chord of that guy exists. And I think I've met them before, if not in high school in Eastern Kentucky, even though they're clearly in Scotland. But that guy exists.
Yeah.
And it's, even though he's kind of over the top, to me, it's not over the top. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I guess I'm giving him a lot of credit, and I should, because he's a fantastic actor. But when Begbie throws the glass over his, and it's freeze frames, you guys remember what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And stops, and then he proceeds to beat the shit out of the whole people downstairs. It's not so much that it's one of the greatest bar fights in cinema history, as much as right now, that character, he is the antithesis of what I surround myself in life with.
Hey.
What?
Continue.
He is the violence. I do not have violent people in my life. I try not to.
Yeah. All right. I'm coming over there to smash a beer bottle on your face.
But do you, I mean, that's what I'm asking. Like,
no, I don't want to be around those people.
No,
I've never wanted to be around those people.
You looked a little shocked about what I meant by that.
No. I was playing.
Oh, no, he's the antithesis of anybody. No, weirdos, I have a ton. Thingamabobs, I've got 20. Jerkwads, freakazoids, weirdos, nerdies, all of them. I love eclectic people. I love batshit nuts people. I do not like violent people. And Begbie to me is for some odd reason, there's so many there, and there's a bunch. And it may be just the time I saw it, I was about 19, 20, that it just clicked with me, trying to get out of Eastern Kentucky too. That to me, he represents just on screen. And I love Robert Carlyle for it. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. But that scene, still, I don't want anything to do with that son of a bitch.
Yeah, no.
Even though he doesn't exist, but he does exist because I've known those people.
Yeah, that's one of those scenes that really messes with me because, like I said, he throws the cup over the ledge.
He's the one
and
that
then
starts the fight.
And
And
it comes up, and there's a woman who's horribly damaged because of what he did, and then he just goes down there and just starts trying to beat the shit out of everybody.
trying to kill him. Yeah, he tries to kill him. He has no compassion, anything. And they
Yeah.
deal a little bit with it in the sequel. Have you guys ever watched the sequel?
No, I really need to watch.
It's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's just the problem is it's a Train Spotting sequel.
Yeah. And I really need to sit down and watch it. For some reason, that's one of those ones that, because I love Train Spotting. It came in at the right time when I was a teenager. It's the darkness of it messed with me.
The first 45 minutes are hilarious.
Yeah.
And then the baby.
Then the baby. Yeah.
And then the movie just changes tonally.
Yep. But that scene, oof.
It's Danny Boyle's. It's my favorite Danny Boyle film. I think it's his best film. What's better?
Formula 51.
That's not directed by Danny Boyle.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You said Danny Boyle. For some reason, I thought you said Robert Carlyle. Sorry.
No, I like Robert Carlyle too. I've never watched any of the Once Upon a Time or whatever he's in. I'm glad he got 10 seasons out of it. I'm sure that was a lot of money.
But you think that's Danny Boyle's best film?
And to me, I don't.
Slumdog.
What'd you say?
Slumdog.
I like Slumdog, but it's not my.
It's not my favorite. Yeah,
it's by no means even a close Train Spotting. I get why they gave him the Academy Award for it. He has a body of work, but by no way. I don't care for. I know you and Christy love the goofy one with the angels.
Yeah, I just watched that. I just watched that about a month ago. A Life Less Ordinary.
I'd never cared for that movie.
I think you're right. I still love that, but yeah, I think you're right. Train Spotting is my favorite film of his.
Train Spotting. Yeah, a Shallow Grave, the one that came out beforehand, I really like that too. It's also got Ewan McGregor.
Yeah,
that's a really good movie. It's a really good dark. That's a film noir, but Train Spotting. All right, James. Or is it Chad?
It's James.
It's me. I'm torn. I know we're doing 2 episodes, so I guess I can just pick one.
I am too. I wanted to go with something different, but I had to keep that 95, 96, 97 motif. Sorry.
I'm going to do one that actually the bar fight is more important than the protagonist. Because had it not been for the bar fight, the movie would not be able to progress, but the film could actually have lost the protagonist and things would have ended up the same. And of course, I'm talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. The bar fight at Marion's, if it wasn't for that bar fight, things would have been different in the film.
Things would have been different. It screws up the dark side because the bad guys, because he only gets it burnt on one side because of the side.
Yep.
By the way, Train Spotting came out in 96, not 97. I totally screwed it up. I apologize.
But yeah, so the fight at Marion's, it does so much to establish Marion's character.
Yeah.
Why she's relevant, everything else. And it's got every form. It's one of those things that it's one of the only bar fights that actually sees escalation, where people are getting beat up and then all of a sudden somebody gets a gun. Right? I mean, it's what would actually be more likely to happen.
Yep.
People aren't going to sit there and take hits and nobody go, hey, wait a minute, who's got a knife? Who's got a gun? The fire that breaks out, that's constant escalation that we don't see in a lot of bar fights. We do see in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's fire, there's gunplay. Obviously, for Indy, there's a whip. All of that going on, but the movie does not progress. Things do not. I mean, the bar fight has some of the most lasting impact, as Joe said, burning on the hand, all that stuff.
The plot. It does all the,
Yeah, everything that comes out of that becomes much more relevant because of that bar fight. It is a key scene in the film, and in this broader conversation that happens. So yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the, and in all honesty, in the full gestalt of Indiana Jones, and I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, but I mean, there's 3 iconic fight scenes. The bar fight scene is the one longest drawn out, and then there's the sword guy fight where he just shoots him, which is a half a second fight, and the plane fight. And they're all in Raiders. And I love all the Indiana Jones films. But I mean, I think those are the ones that all of those tell us something about the character, drive along the plot, and it just works out really well. But that bar fight has to happen. And I think it also, like I said, it tells us so much about Marion because Marion has been doing a drinking competition before that. And she basically, you're supposed to originally think, oh, she's plastered. And she's been more or less faking it the entire time.
Yeah.
Because she's stone cold sober as soon as she beats that guy in the drinking contest. And she takes her money and she goes. And it also sets up, again, it says a lot about her character because she is the one. Indiana Jones doesn't invite her along. That bar fight ends with her holding up the relic saying, you just got a partner.
Yeah. No, she is not a damsel in distress.
No, she's not Willie Scott. And again, I love Temple of Doom as well. But that's the reason why it, to me, makes sense that Karen Allen's character comes back.
Yes.
And she's Indiana Jones' equal. In her own right, she can do exactly what he can do. And that bar fight sets all that up. It's one of the most important scenes in the gestalt of Indiana Jones lore because that bar fight tells us so much about the characters and who they are and sets up their backstory too.
Yep.
So yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorite bar fight scenes because it's just, it's choreographed well and everything else.
Now, and I think Indiana Jones does. I know we're getting off a little bit of a tangent, but I introduced my kid. It's just he and I Saturday, and he's been about mummies and Frankenstein, and I couldn't really get him into Karloff. So I was like, well, fine, I'll start showing the Stephen Sommers. And then we ended up watching The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. And I hadn't seen
my daughter got into those too this weekend.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it in 20 years, Chad.
I don't want to interrupt your story, but I also want to mention that I showed my oldest daughter. I was trying to lean them into classic Universal monsters because I didn't think she would get into black and white movies, but she is. I decided to show her Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. She loved it, and I was so happy.
Now try that because I couldn't get him to do. In fact, even the other day, he's like, "Young, yeah, I hear Young Frankenstein. Yeah, I just find it funny." It's like, oh yeah, because it insists upon itself. He didn't get the joke. Anyway, he only watched like 10 minutes of it before he was bored. But we're watching The Mummy, and Chad, you please speak freely about it, but The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I was watching The Mummy. And one of the things that really stood out, other than some of the same problems I had, although I'm more forgiving of it, actually, I kind of like, what's his face, Brendan Fraser in the film better than I did when it came out.
Oh, really? I always liked him in those movies.
But I was watching it and I couldn't believe, and because she's just a fantastic actress, how much of she is a damsel in distress and how bad it plays now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the first one. It's not as bad as in the second one, but in the first one, it just plays poorly now.
Yeah.
The other parts of the movie, it's fine. She's just there
to get Brendan Fraser to get her out of trouble.
Yeah, that's it. And Indiana Jones, 20 years before that, 18 years before that, I think the Mummy came out in 99 and Indiana Jones came out in 81, correct? Or at least I know Indiana Jones came out in 81.
The only reason I remember 99 is that's the year that Phantom Menace came out, and my supervisor at the place I worked at the time, her son kept saying, "No, I don't care about the Star Wars. Biggest movie of the year is going to be The Mummy." And I'm like, I don't know if you've ever met a Star Wars fan before, but honestly, it could come out and be terrible, and it's still going to make more money than The Mummy.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I mean,
The Mummy was a hit too, though.
Yeah, no, none of them were hurting for money.
None of them were hurting for money, or Mummy, or as my kid's criticism, he liked the sequel better because you know what he said. And by the way, I was watching it with him, and I didn't have a good argument. There's not enough Mummy in this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
The Mummy actually, I didn't remember. The Mummy doesn't show up till damn near over halfway through.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, though, I want to bring this up because y'all mentioned this, and y'all mentioned. Go ahead, Chet.
I just want to get off again. We're getting on a tangent, but as we talked about in a previous episode, I just got done with Universal, and I did the Mummy ride, and something about it wasn't sitting with me, and I didn't realize until we just watched the Mummy this past weekend. Oh shit! Arnold Vosloo never says a word of English, but in the ride, all he does is speak English. I'm like, where did he learn his vocabulary?
I've never written it, so good.
But then there's several scenes where he doesn't look like the mummy. I'm like, holy shit. I was watching Arnold Vosloo as Darkman play the mummy.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up though, because
Yep.
one of the things. So I did Halloween Horror Nights this past weekend, and I'm glad you brought up, and I'm glad we're talking about it because one of the best things that they did, one of the best haunted houses. I did the Stranger Thing one, that was cool, but I love they did Universal Monsters Unmasked was one of the haunted houses, and it was based on all the classic ones. And I'm telling you, it was the of the ones I got to do, it was the best one. Because like they did the Invisible Man and they obviously had
couldn't see
actors
him.
and stuff like that until they wanted you to. Like they did the same tricks, right? He was wearing black against black. And there's low lighting and all that stuff. But honestly, I was like, oh my God, it's like walking through. They had the old, police constable going, get off the streets. 4 women have been killed, or 4 people have been killed. There's something going on in town. That's how you started the haunted house, and you went through and they had Jekyll and Hyde and all of them. And honestly, the group that I went with, my wife and a couple people that she works with, they even said they're like, we're not huge Universal Monster fans, but that was amazing because it was all. I mean, it did that same boo scare stuff, but it was Universal classic monsters, and I was just so glad that they are honoring that and bringing that stuff back up because God, it works so well.
That's cool.
It still holds up.
I didn't want to interrupt James. James,
Yeah.
pop quiz, and then we got to get back into bar fights. Who played the Invisible Man in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein?
Wasn't Vincent Price, was it?
It was Vincent Price.
Because he played the son of the Invisible Man in The Invisible Man Returns. He was the second Invisible Man after.
And not to change the subject, but I think we're ready. This is the end of the episode. Yeah.
Well, hold on. I wanted to wrap talking about one, but James, are you done?
Don't rap. You can't rap.
No, you don't even rap happy, sir. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really it because I think I'm pretty happy with the ones I did in my first episode because we had, Star Trek, one of the greatest bar fights on television. And then, at World's End and Raiders. Yeah, those are 3 great ones I can stand by. So yes.
At least No Holds Barred was entertaining in its cheesiness. I originally, when I was thinking about this episode, I did want to end on what I thought was maybe one of the worst bar fights in cinema history. And so today I did something I normally don't do, which
Shower?
is
Beat me to it, you said.
I washed my taint the first time 6 months.
Beat me to it, you son of a bitch.
No,
I had about 4 different options. That's just the lowest amount of syllables, so I had to go with it quickly.
Exactly the one I was going for too.
I looked online at lists, and I was beyond pissed when I saw this fight scene show up on several lists as one of the top 10 bar fights in cinema history. Steven Seagal on Deadly Ground.
It's on 3 different lists, Chad.
A bunch of Steven Seagal. I looked at a couple different ones, but I actually had made mine before I did because I said I had.
Which is insane. We just gave people 9 good examples of bar fighting films, and I don't know how many of those were on lists you all looked up.
Not many.
Dude,
On Deadly Ground should not be on a single.
It's on 3.
One. It is one of the most boring, dumb fights of all time. It's Steven Seagal literally standing still for. So let's play it. Let's play it out. So it's Steven Seagal. He grabs a lasso from the wall and proceeds to stand still while stuntmen who are supposed to be oil guys are running at him, and he's using the lasso to throw them across the room. And then when he loses the lasso, he beats up a person who is probably in their 60s.
Yeah.
And then how does this epic fight conclude? With a slap contest with him and Mike Starr, where Mike Starr has to put it. It's not. I forget what they call it. I almost think it's called a sissy test at one point. I think the non-PC term it used to be, but you put your hands on top of the other, and the person tries to slap your hands, right?
Something like that. Whatever.
If Steven Seagal slaps Mike Starr's hands, he gets to punch him.
The best, seriously, the best of that scene ever that of playing out in a movie is Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum, which is an underrated movie that most people have never seen.
Yeah, Deep Cover is an amazing film.
Right, but there's the scene where they're doing that back and forth with the mean guy and that guy. Oh my god, he's a great Latinx actor. He was in Sanford and Son. He played Julio next door. But anyway, sorry,
It's blanking. I'm blanking.
can't think of the character actor's name. Oh my god, if we never brought up Deep Cover in one of our hidden films, we should. Do
We
that.
should.
Yeah.
But no. Anyway, it is just him hitting Mike Starr over and over again, and then finally he gives this big spiel about how we should everybody, because it's all about these oil men picking on Native Americans, and in how he actually gives a full speech about how we should love one another. Steven Seagal. It is awful. It should not be on any list, and it made me angry, and that's why I wanted to end the episode with that, because in part 2 we're going to list a whole nother list of amazing bar fights that I don't know if are on any list. I don't know if any of mine were on lists because I stopped looking when I saw On Deadly Ground on a bunch of lists.
It was on 3. It was on 3.
I saw, actually, there was one list that had 3 Steven Seagal. It was supposed to be the top 10. They had 3 Steven Seagal films listed. I don't remember which 3, but I know that was one of them.
And no offense, I'm assuming you guys that The Raid 2 wasn't on anybody's list. And
Yeah, it's on 1.
The Raid 2 is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Steven, and so all the ones who put Steven Seagal on your list and not The Raid 2, you should be ashamed of yourselves, and you shouldn't be posting articles online.
And with that, that's been episode 1.
Real quick, you mentioned films that we've mentioned, or you said that should be a hidden gem. We have talked about a hidden gem, I think, 3 times, and it's not been available. They're re-releasing it though on DVD and Blu-ray. I think next month. It's either Arrow or it's one of those specialty shop. No, Red Rock West is getting re-released on special edition Blu-ray and DVD.
That came up a few weeks ago when Chad's like, name 3.
It came up on my feed today that it's getting a
I don't
special
ever remember
edition
doing
release.
that because I hate when people do that to me.
Red Rock
Totally did it.
West.
Yeah, because I said that's one of the best Dwight Yoakam. Dwight Yoakam's.
Oh yeah, I did do that.
Dwight Yoakam was like,
I did do that on
Dwight
Dwight
Yoakam, bitch, and then I started rolling them off.
Yeah, that was the one time I was a dick. Yeah.
One time, you say. One time. And on that note,
one time.
Good night, everybody.
Bonehead Weekly. See you all next week where we'll do part 2. Toodles.
Ah.